soon as they do that and they tie it to an index, they've completely gotten around the new law.
So is anything going to be done to stop that?
Well, 3 weeks ago, I remember I read in the journal that one congressman sent a letter to the banking industry signed by 18 other congressmen objecting to what had happened, saying you should be honorable. We did not give you this grace period to February to give you the opportunity to fleece the American public. The letter was very direct and very straightforward. But has anything happened since? No. Is anything going to happen? I sincerely doubt it. The things that I've learned in the last year in watching our government, watching the way the auto crisis was handled, watching the way the banking industry is handled, to get something through Congress, through the House, through the Senate, and signed by the President is almost a miracle every time it happens.
Well, everyone has to have their favorite pieces of pork thrown into any legislation, and
we're out of pork. That's what our government has to start realizing. I think some people in the government do realize it. It's just the factions. It's everybody. It's the pork, and what's good for Tennessee doesn't matter what's good for Michigan. What's good for California.
But it's even worse here in Michigan.
Yeah, much worse. I mean, we're looking at 15.5% unemployment. Detroit's unemployment is in the 25 range. The national is like 9.5%. We're 30–40% worse than the average for the standard in the country. And our prospects we're in for a tough road ahead, which all comes back to where I come from with this notion of saying, on an individual basis, people need to sit back and say, I have to fend for myself, and I have to think through the right strategy for me, and I can't focus on the old rules. The old rules were, pay your bills on time, meet your obligations, and everything good will come as a result of it.
Doesn't work that way.
You could go to your land. Look at the banks in town here. They're calling loans on businesses that have never missed a payment, and they're in formula. Why are they calling the loans? Because the loans were supported by guarantees, and the principals who had the guarantees had a lot of real estate holdings, so they had tremendous net worth. Well, now they look at their real estate holdings, and they're all about even or less than their mortgage amounts. Their net worth is gone, so now the bank says you don't have the asset base to support the loan. We're insecure. We'd like you to find a new bank.
It's Catch-22.
Yeah, because there are no banks.
We've reached another break point. We'll be right back with my guest, Ken Gross, and issues in these trying domestic times, to say the least.
Hey there. Hi. I haven't seen you before.
Yeah, I just moved here. I'm new. Wanna hang out or something? 'Cause I have a feeling we're gonna be best friends.
Things can get pretty ugly when you're bored. In an after-school program, you can find something way better to do.
We're back with my guest, Ken Gross, and issues in these horrible financial times. Ken, we have an aging population. We have more and more people in their 60s who thought real estate would provide them with a nest egg for retirement. Their 401ks would have some value, and they'd have some pensions. Well, people are being laid off right and left. As we talked early in the show, houses are either worth very little or underwater, and 401ks, though the market's trying to recover a little, but nothing is what it used to be. And a lot of people who are relying on either pensions from companies, they're finding it's not there. So what are you advising? What are you doing for people who are reaching a retirement age when they thought they'd have a golden parachute and it's nothing?
Absolutely the most difficult situation people are facing. What you have to look at each situation individually, but you have to start with a premise, and that is you're not going to recover the assets that you lost. You have to look to what is the best avenue of making sure you have enough income between Social Security and whatever assets you do have left to continue to provide support for yourself through your retirement. And it's tough. I've got clients in that exact same situation where they've got a couple, they bought 2 condominiums, for example, that they were renting out in Florida. 4 years ago, these condos were worth $800,000 each. They have mortgages of around $350,000. And they had tenants during the summer months, and one of them they used for themselves. Now the situation is there are no tenants. The values, you can't even sell them for $300,000. You're so far underwater on them, there's no market right now to buy. So they're getting, and before they came into me, they had continued over the course of a year at a rate of $6,000 a month servicing those mortgages. How did they do that? They pulled money out of their IRAs, which is what I call a protected asset, which means it's exempt in bankruptcy. A creditor can't get to it. And they use that to pay off the mortgages and partial on their credit cards. When they came into me, I said, you can't do that. You have to stop. And we stopped doing that. We've stopped paying the credit card debt. I've also looked at it and analyzed this. In some situations, if your value of your house is less than the amount that you owe on it, or equal, you have to make a decision. If you have another place you can live, like this particular couple has a summer home in Alpena, so they have an alternative that they could move there at one point if they wanted to. They can live in that house in their current residence for probably a minimum of 15 months up to 18 months, letting the house go through foreclosure. You live there for free. It's a better deal. I call that getting your equity out sometimes. It's as harsh as it is. My role when I look at someone in their 60s and 70s who have gotten hurt that bad, I have to find a path for them to have enough income to support, to feed themselves, to have transportation, to have health care.
But what do you do? I mean, often there isn't enough.
Stop paying the credit cards. If you have alternate housing choices, live in a house as long as you can for free. Let it go through the foreclosure process. In Michigan right now, typically they won't start foreclosure till you're 90 days behind. A new law that was passed in July in Michigan says if there's a foreclosure, they have to give you an opportunity to modify the mortgage, and if you avail yourself of that opportunity by sending a letter within 14 days of your receipt of the registered letter, you get a 90-day chance to modify the mortgage. What I would do in that case is I opt for the 14 days, I meet and I modify the mortgage. Make one payment, maybe even 2. Then let it go in default again. By the time they get around to restarting the foreclosure process, because the banks are very slow because they're overburdened with too many foreclosures, that foreclosure process is put off another 7, 8 months. Then once it finally goes, you advertise it for sale for 5 weeks, it goes to sale, then you get to live there another 6 months in the redemption period. So it's a strategy, as harsh as it sounds, that if you have no money, better to live in a place for 18 months for free, save those dollars from expense, and then at the end of the day, if you have to, you get yourself into an apartment at $1,200, $1,300 a month.
Ken, we're running out of time. I wish we had more time. I want to thank you for being my guest on Practical Law. This is a fascinating yet terrifying topic. I want to thank you for watching Practical Law.